I was there. A grown man stood in front of the British Parliament, reached into his coat, and produced from a jar his own severed ear. And it worked. Within a year, 2 empires were at war. People ask me what the dumbest war I've ever seen was. There are a lot of contenders. This one is named after the ear. This is the War of Jenkins Ear. It ran for the better part of a decade, pulled in Britain and Spain, sprawled across the Caribbean, and killed, by some counts, tens of thousands of people. Most of them never saw a Spanish soldier. They died of fever in swamps, very far from home, in a war that started because of a customs dispute and a body part. I'm going to tell you how a single ear talked an empire into a catastrophe. Stay with me. The stupid part isn't the ear. The stupid part is everything the grown-ups did with it. To understand the ear, you have to understand the smuggling. After an earlier war, Britain had won the asiento, the right to sell a limited amount of goods and enslaved people into Spain's American colonies. 1 ship a year. Officially. Officially is doing a great deal of work in that sentence. In practice, the British smuggled relentlessly, and Spain knew it. So Spain sent out the guardacostas, Coast Guard ships, many of them privateers with a financial interest, to stop and search British vessels. Tempers, as you can imagine, were excellent. Enter a man named Robert Jenkins, captain of a brig called the Rebecca. In 1731, off the coast near the Caribbean, a Spanish commander boarded the Rebecca, accused Jenkins of smuggling, and, depending on whose telling you trust, cut off his ear. The story goes that he handed it back and said, "Take this to your king and tell him I'd do the same to him." Whether he actually said anything half that good is doubtful. The quote got better every time it was retold. Here's the first thing nobody tells you. Nothing happened. Not for years. An ear was lost in 1731, and the world simply went on being mildly annoyed about trade. What changed wasn't the ear. What changed was that British merchants and politicians who wanted a war with Spain for trade, for plunder, for the South Sea Company's books, went looking for a reason the public could feel. An abstract argument about customs rights doesn't move a crowd. A jar with an ear in it moves a crowd. Which brings us, in 1738, to Parliament. Jenkins was reportedly called to testify, and this is the part that's half history, half theatre, supposedly produced the preserved ear in front of the House of Commons. Did he actually brandish the ear? Historians genuinely argue about it. Some say the ear in the room is a later embellishment, and honestly, the embellishment is the most honest part of the story, because the effect was real either way. The outrage was manufactured, packaged, and sold. And it sold beautifully. In October 1739, Britain declared war on Spain. A nation went to the brink over a grievance nearly a decade old, attached to a captain most people couldn't have picked out of a lineup. At first, it went well, which is the most dangerous thing that can happen to a dumb idea. Admiral Edward Vernon sailed for the Spanish Main and took Portobello in present-day Panama. They were so happy they named a road in London after it, Portobello Road. You can still go there. People buy antiques. Nobody's thinking about the ear. And so, emboldened, Britain decided to do something much bigger. In 1741, it threw an enormous fleet and army at Cartagena de Indias, one of the best defended ports in the entire Spanish Empire. The siege of Cartagena was a disaster. The Spanish defenders, under a one-eyed, one-armed, one-legged commander named Blas de Lezo, held. But the real killer wasn't the defense, it was disease. Yellow fever and dysentery moved through the British forces and took them apart. Tens of thousands of men were lost over the course of the war, the majority to sickness rather than combat. Among the survivors of Cartagena was a colonial officer named Lawrence Washington. He admired his commander so much he went home and named his estate after him, Mount Vernon. His younger half-brother George would inherit it. So yes, there's a thread from a severed ear to the home of the first American president. History is like that. I find it exhausting. And the war itself, it sputtered, sprawled, and got swallowed by a bigger war, the War of the Austrian Succession. By the time the treaties were signed, around 1748, the borders had barely moved. Almost nothing was gained. A great many people died to move the map a few inches, and then move it back. That's the thing about the dumbest wars. The spark is always something small and stupid, an ear, a dog, a bucket. But the spark isn't what kills people. The decisions on top of it are. The ear was just an ear. It took a room full of serious, powerful, intelligent men to turn it into a graveyard. I was there for the ear. I was there for the fever camps, too. Next time, I'll tell you about the day a wave of molasses, yes, molasses, tore through Boston and killed 21 people. I was there for that one as well. Still finding it in my boots. I'm always there. That's rather the problem.